This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're at the Farm Progress Show, where I almost got to talk to Governor Quinn. I did talk to Chapin Rose, and we saw everything that's new under the sun. And believe me, we're talking under the sun on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. We're at the Farm Progress Show here in Decatur, and there's a lot to see and do, so we went ahead and tried to see as much and do as much as we could. I'm now here with one of the muckety-mucks for the Farm Progress Show, Dina Morgan. She's a marketing specialist. And Dina, this is quite impressive.
Yes, this is our 5th time in Decatur, and it has just gotten bigger and bigger each year we've been here.
So bigger in what, by what metric are you talking about?
Well, when we started in 2005, we had 10 streets. So since then, we've added 11 and 12. And this year, we had to create an annex area in our west parking lots, and that hosts about 60 to 70 exhibitors.
So you have equipment manufacturers, you have seed and chemical plants, you have a little bitty dealers. What can a farmer expect what can somebody interested in agriculture expect when they show up here?
It's probably almost easier to talk about what they can't see.
Okay, what can't they see?
Than what they can see. I mean, I can't think of any name in agriculture that's not here at the Farm Progress Show. And they bring their latest products, their best displays, their top people, so that they can talk to the folks that are coming to the Farm Progress Show, answer their questions, talk about what they're offering, and it's really the best place to come and see what's going on in ag.
Now, one of the disappointments of this show was the crop demonstrations. Because of the wet spring, which our audience is very familiar with, you weren't able to get crops mature enough. How tough is that? I mean, talk about the problems you had getting the show off.
You know, our demonstration corn wasn't planted this year until May 15th. All the farmers out there know that's almost a month behind schedule, and I would say our crops are a month behind schedule. If we would have had a real hot summer like we did last year, it would have been fine. Everything would have matured on time, but it was a cool, wet summer. So we just didn't get the maturity. The corn is still really green out there if you've driven by it, but we were at least able to offer what we call a runway show. So visitors can still go and see equipment moving. We're doing combining, tillage, and GPS equipment. So the machines are just running past the bleachers. They talk about their features and things that they can offer that's new or different on their piece of machinery. So you still get a little bit of a feel of moving equipment, but it's not actually out in the fields.
Well, Dina Morgan, thank you so much for helping us out, and I hope you have a great rest of the show.
Thanks. I love having you here in Decatur, and we love being here.
I'm with State Senator Chapin Rose, a friend of Eastern, a friend of Charleston, and now he's representing 10 counties.
Yeah.
Senator
Everywhere but Charleston.
Everywhere but Charleston. That's okay. We'll
right.
Still let you come
Right,
visit. But Senator Rose, and it sounds good saying that. Senator Rose, what are your concerns about agricultural in the state?
So first of all, one of the things I like to remind people in a positive nature is that agribusiness is 20% of all jobs in Illinois. And I'm constantly, politely reminding my colleagues from up north that, you know, hey guys, look, the largest single, and this is it, the largest single economic sector in the state is agribusiness. Right. When you talk about the exports that are coming in and coming out of Illinois, a lot of that's, you know, ag. So a lot of jobs. One of the things I did with conjunction with the Farm Progress Show, I've invited all my colleagues to come here and learn more about it. and again, you know, in a nice way, in a polite way, we want to educate people.
Nudge, nudge.
And we've actually got 30 coming tomorrow. We're going to start the day over at ADM at Commodities Trading Pit, and they trade, you know, commodities all over the world in real time. Pretty impressive operation. Then we're going to come to the show in the afternoon. It's going to be hot, but that's okay. You know, but they'll get both sides. They'll get a chance of, you know, the production agriculture side here at the show, and also kind of the agribusiness side of it back at ADM. So, you know, I'm excited to help promote and cheerlead a little bit, and you know, it just couldn't be. And yesterday, I saw a great presentation from the ADM folks about the new intermodal center here in Decatur and what that's going to do to exports from the Midwest. And of course, you're an ag show, but it won't just be exports of agriculture. It'll really help our entire region maintain and even strive higher in terms of exporting to the rest of the world. So I'm excited about that piece. The constant battle we fight, and I don't want to be negative because this is a great day and we're going to have a lot of positive here. The constant battle we fight is the constant urge for government to over-regulate,
Right.
and to regulate people out of business, and to regulate businesses out of existence. That's a constant battle, and something that what I've seen work with that is education efforts like Tomorrow. When you get somebody maybe isn't as familiar with how a family farm operation works, come down here and take a look around, and they suddenly, as they're voting on things, the light starts going off, and hey, maybe this isn't going to work quite the way we want it to work. So we'll see.
So following that up, I know with the Department of Transportation, when they realized that farm trucks aren't the same as semis, when the employment people realized that farm kids do work on the family farm, so what sort of issues do you think are best now to educate to get?
The two big ones the last year or so was saying that farm kids can't work on a farm, which is just wait a minute. You're now not just flying in the face of the last couple hundred years of United States history, you're flying in the face of the entirety of world history. I mean, kids work on farms. Oh, that's what we do. The other one that just kind of blew us all away was the dust regs, if you remember that one.
Right.
So
which is fine in a crowded urban area.
Right, but you can't. There's just no way to. I mean, you can't possibly cover a 40-acre field, and But anyway, those are the types of things that are you're constantly battling. The EPA and to some extent now the DNR have gotten involved, and even to a lesser extent the Department of Agriculture. But my goal has always been to find allies and educate them. Mm-hmm. This isn't who's right or wrong. It's about, hey, let me show you how this works in reality, and then come back and tell me if you still think this is a good idea.
Right. So excellent. Well, thank you, Senator Rose. I hope you have a great rest of the Farm Record Show.
Thank you. Have a good one.
I'm now with Linda Arnold. She's a customer service lead for the America Grows program with Monsanto. And Linda, what is the America Grows project?
It's a program that helps rural schools get merit-based grants to support their science and math curriculums.
Now, does it have to be agricultural programs, math and science programs?
No, the program actually starts with the farmer. A farmer nominates a school district, and then a school district is invited to participate. And the grants are really around science and math. We know science and math is such a core to basic education. Absolutely. That we really want to support science and math. Now, agriculture gets involved. The farmer starts and makes the nomination, and then oftentimes the ag teacher is working with the science and math teacher, and we have just really great programs coming together with a really collaborative effort.
So the farmers can nominate a school district. Then how do you select who gets what grant?
Well, it starts with the farmer. They nominate the school district. Then we work with the schools to submit a grant. It is a merit-based grant, so it's based on need and program and really the big idea. So once we get the grants, we have a team of teachers in St. Louis that are in counties that are not eligible. They look at the grants and narrow it down, and then we take the finalists to a group of farmers from across the country. We have about 30 farmers that serve on this education council, and they select the final grant in each of the crop reporting districts.
Well, two of the schools in our area, Neoga won a $25,000 grant, and Paris won a $10,000 grant. So this is really hitting close to home. So for those school districts, thank you.
Well, it is. I mean, today we're announcing 181 schools across the country will be receiving $2.3 million. So it is nice. And it's at the local level. We'll be giving away 11 $10,000 grants here in Illinois at the crop reporting district level, and then 2 state $25,000 grants.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
I'm with Lynn Warfel now. He's a farmer in Champaign County, about 8 miles south of Champaign.
That's correct.
And you're on the board for America Farmers Grows Educational Board, right?
That's right. This is I'm just finishing my 3rd year on that board.
Now, this is the board that chooses the nominees, or do you judge the final nominees?
We're the final step in the process of selecting the winners. We just did that a few weeks ago, and now today will be the first presentations for the winners.
So the sorts of programs you see, what are schools really needing?
Well, all over America, the rural schools need better funding mechanisms, and if you don't have enough money, that impacts everything. So it's been a real pleasure to get a little bit of a capsule of the people who have dreams from the rural school districts.
Now, you look at a bunch of programs. How tough is it to choose one school over another?
The system helps us do that quite a bit. A group of people who are professionals in grant selections coaches us and trains us and then helps us. And so their structure really helps us. But you're right, it is a very difficult thing to do because basically all of the ones that we look at are good and needy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. The schools, there are some very happy schools here today.
You bet.
Dave Meister is the grant writer for the Paris Community High School, one of the recipients of the American Farmers Grow Scholarship. Dave, talk about how did you get nominated and how did you prepare your grant?
We had local farmers that nominated Paris High School for the grant, and we've actually been preparing grants for the last couple of years. We've been nominated a couple of years, and we've refined our application. We've been working on a STEM initiative, science, technology, engineering, math at Paris High School, and we wrote this grant in particular to bring some mobile technology to those students in both our science and our agriculture programs.
What sort of technology are you talking about?
We're looking at mobile laptops, in particular Chromebooks that are basically a netbook that connect to the internet and allow students to have access to all sorts of online materials.
Okay. Now, talk about the ag program at Paris Community High School.
We are currently a 2-teacher ag program. We have approximately 300 kids that are affected by the ag program, either in our FFA program or in classes at Paris High School. We run the gamut of programs from animal science all the way through ag mechanics, horticulture, and we're really excited about our program. Of course, we're building a new building in Paris, and our ag program and our science program both are a big part of what we're doing, and Monsanto's making a great contribution to it.
Right now we have Bruce McVicker of technical service agronomist for DuPont, and Bruce, you guys have been keeping an eye on the crop across the state here. What are you seeing? I know we've been having some stresses.
Yeah, starting the year off, obviously we had the late planting and the wet conditions, which led to some poorer root development, and that's really showing through right now with the dryness that we've had here lately. And it's we're looking at our later planted corn, maybe some nosing back because of the dryness, and also we're probably going to see some smaller seed, smaller size soybeans. And we're probably not going to get that extra bump in our yield on the soybeans because those last few pods that we usually have come with the rain right about now aren't going to be there. Typically we always say a state fair rain makes our crop, makes our soybeans, and we're about 2 weeks after that, but we still aren't getting that right now. So, with all the multiple factors of this growing season, we go from too wet to now too dry. And with the lack of root development, it's going to show worse.
Did the wet spring affect the nitrogen? Did it bleach out, or did it?
What I saw, in some fields, certain soil types, you noticed it, but for the most part, some of the late spring nitrate tests that we did across the area, it wasn't as bad as what we thought. Our growers are doing a great job of using, nitrogen inhibitors, and which really helped them and really paid off. I will say I had quite a few guys that probably did go out there and put another 40 to 80 units of nitrogen on side dress. I don't think that hurt them, but what I'm seeing right now, it was more dependent on soil type. Your tighter, blacker soils didn't show it as bad. Your wider dirts obviously were showing it worse.
So what are you thinking in general? Average yield this year?
Average, I would say we're going to be, it all depends on the rain.
It all depends.
Average based off of the last couple years, to me this was setting up to be like 09. We had that cool week that really slowed down our crop, but then we went hot and now dry. I don't think we're going to be as good as 09. Just right now the way it looks. The beans looked really good 3 weeks ago. I was really happy with what we had out there. I was really happy with our corn also, but now I'm starting to notice that nosing back, and I'm afraid we're going to be obviously better than last year, but I think we're still going to be under like that 09 year.
Okay, so we've had some unique weather, let's put it to you that way. Last year drought, this year wet spring, then we had a little bit of a mini drought during the summer. What sort of things are you guys seeing? Is this pattern more likely to go on, or are you developing products for different types of weather?
You know, there is no right answer here. I mean, if I had that crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be standing here talking to you.
Yeah.
But no, right now, I mean, our biggest thing is whether it's wet or dry, having your fields clean so you don't have weeds out there, using up moisture, or preventing the sun from drying it out. Like this spring, if you had no-till field and had weeds on it, you had more bug issues, wetter soils, cooler soil temps. So, you know, having that cleaned up, having a fall type program, and that's what we're talking is how do we manage our fields and make sure we have the nutrients there so the crops can have it all and not the weeds, and the control resistance issues. So, you know, it's all works together, and that's where, you know, we try to tailor make a program for each one of our growers.
Well, Bruce, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we traveled all the way to Decatur to find somebody from Ashmore. Gary Coffey is a farmer near Ashmore. And Gary, what do you come looking for when you come to the show here?
I came with the boys, my sons, and we're just kind of looking around, see some new stuff that they have, and, you know, meet a lot of friends, and nothing in particular.
And pick up a few freebies too, right?
Got a lot of bags.
Okay, now Gary, you plant a decent amount of ground over by us in Edgar County. What is it looking like to you?
We have some really very good looking places. We have some where they drowned out early, too much rain, lost a little bit of nitrogen in the wet areas, and some stuff is really, really under stress. I've heard it's worse in other spots.
Right. So what range are you seeing? I mean, it's too early. You can't plan on harvest totals until you actually get in the bin, but what are you seeing?
We've seen yield checks come down probably 30, 40 bushel in the last month, give or take. And we're still seeing some 200 plus bushel corn, but we're seeing some, 150 up. And our light timber soil, we really haven't checked it yet, so not exactly sure on it.
Well, thanks, Gary, and have a great rest of the show, okay?
Nice meeting you, Fred. Pleasure.
I'm with Ryan Shaver. He's the marketing manager for tractors for Size H in the Midwest here. And Ryan, what's new with the ag equipment? What's new with tractors?
Well, this is going to be an interesting farm progress show for all equipment manufacturers because as we head into 2014 marks a significant year in the business.
Why is that?
Under the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, the manufacturers of diesel-powered products over the past several years have had to adhere to certain emissions restriction regulations or contaminant restrictions regulations. And 2014 marks the start of the final stage of those emissions regulations for powered farm equipment over 175 horsepower. So tractors, combines, application equipment.
How much cleaner are these tractors as compared to older ones?
Well, it's interesting when you look at what we're trying to clean up. There's two primary contaminants when we look at diesel exhaust fumes. There's carbon emissions, which is known as particulate matter or PM, and that includes basically hard emissions or not. I don't want to say dust, but when you see black smoke, that's what it is. Right. What even more harmful is nitrous oxide emissions, and that's what with the final stage here we're really trying to cut out on is those nitrous oxides or NOx emissions, more commonly known as the cause of or the alleged cause of greenhouse gases and acid rain, those NOx emissions. And with this final stage, we're cutting down those NOx emissions in excess of 85% versus previous models, our existing machines today, which have cut down those NOx emissions and particulate matter emissions over time drastically.
Okay, so that's great. What are you doing as far as some of the other issues? Compaction, you're pulling bigger pieces of equipment. What sort of other things can farmers look for?
Well, compaction is an interesting beast. It's certainly a challenge, but a challenge that we can work through and a challenge that we as farmers can manage. I mean, I farm up in the northern part of the state with my family, and we're certainly sensitive to compaction. We have been for many years, especially since we're a no-till farmer, have been. We're back to partially no-till now because of our understanding of compaction, because of the fact that heavier combines, heavier tractors, heavier grain carts and running semis through the field causes a compaction layer and really limits your return on investment or your potential ROI as a farmer.
Right.
So farmers are really sensitive to compaction anymore. And manufacturers have brought forward some advances in technology. Advances in tillage equipment can be seen on our lot, as well as John Deere's, AGCO's, and the short line manufacturers here in North America that are at Farm Progress Show this week. But also right behind us here, you see actually a tracked tractor, a tractor on rubber belts. And you start to see there's several other manufacturers that are launching new rubber belted tractors at the farm show here this week. We launched this particular tractor behind me last year, and what those are for is in an effort to help that heavy, high horsepower tractor float across the soil better, because we need the higher horsepower as farmers to be able to get across the fields faster, to be able to capitalize on shrinking cropping windows. We saw some of that this spring. You know, I know we saw a very wet spring in central Illinois this year. And
you need a turbo boost on some of the tractors.
That's what it seems like. You need a turbo boost, or the next best thing, higher horsepower with a lighter footprint, and that's what a high horsepower track tractor is all about. Spreading that weight over a wider surface area to reduce compaction and start managing compaction right from the first time you touch the soil in the spring.
What's some of the new cool technology that we're beginning to see in farm equipment?
There's a lot of new cool technology in farm equipment,
and farmers love toys.
Well, farmers do love toys, but it's starting to become a business decision.
Right.
I mean, farmers with shrinking margins, increasing input costs, and you know, this summer, unfortunately, we've seen kind of a bearish trend in our corn market for December contracts. It's looking a little rough for new crop. It's headed forward this year. We've got declining margins, so much of this technology that's being implemented, like integrated guidance technology, precision farming technology, telematics, fleet management software, as well as just some of the technology inherent to the machine, variable transmissions, track technology in the machine, suspended undercarriages. So many of these seem like toys and are nice to haves. Of course they're nice to haves, but farmers are able to justify that on a cost benefit analysis now, to where they understand that yes, it's an investment, yes, you'll pay a premium price for a premium product, but in many cases farmers, especially here in the Midwest and the Corn Belt, are able to justify a lot of those advances on the returns that it offers for their farm, on the ability to capitalize on the slim margins that they do have.
Well, Ryan Schaefer, thank you very much.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure talking with you today.
And here's Greg Webb. He's the Vice President of State Government Relationships for ADM. And Greg, you know, we've seen a lot of fancy stuff here today, but let's get back to basics. Corn and beans. What is the future for corn and beans?
You know, as people drive around the central part of Illinois, I think most of us look at those fields of corn and soybeans growing and think, wow, I've seen that for all my life. Not much is changing.
Exactly.
When in fact, the reality is so much is changing. Nothing is left unchanged. So what's exciting about our industry is that in those acres of corn and soybeans that people pass, we've got so much happening in the way of technology, just in the growth, in the seed vigor of what those seeds represent.
Okay.
When I was a kid, we used to plant corn, 4 or 6 inches apart, and if you had 30,000 plant population, then that was a heavy seeding.
Right.
Well, today we're almost 30% stronger than that in plant populations, and that speaks to what's happening in the areas of biotechnology and gene mapping and molecular breeding and other technologies that provide that seed vigor then that we can prosper from.
So you're getting more out of each kernel of corn, each bean. What sort of processing differences are there now?
Well, I would just tell you, in a kernel of corn, you have a 56-pound bushel, of which 33 pounds is starch, 23 pounds is protein, and from that 56 pounds of corn, we can get 24 different products to come from that.
Wow.
24.
Wow.
Now, most people, and these are in various streams, obviously, and the most well-known are high fructose corn syrup, ethanol, and the corn pellet feed. But the reality is that you've got lots of these other streams, and a few years ago, those more minute streams weren't utilized in the way they were, but be used in ways that are kind of outside that thinking about providing feed for a cow or food for a person. For instance, sorbitol is a product that has both food and industrial uses. So sorbitol's in toothpaste, for instance, and it has some other applications in that way. As you look at even some of the machinery that exists today, fertilization, of course, is a very important aspect of things, and now you have they are equipped to analyze what their field may be sufficient or, more importantly, deficient in some of the various elements that to optimize the production of that land. In a similar way, then they get that result through their yield monitor as well. So I think there's going to be some application of use to that to say, how do we think about optimizing more? We're pretty good at what we do. As a matter of fact, we're really good at what we do.
Right.
But there is a lot of room for improvement, and some of that room for improvement is at the agronomic level, but it's through that entire supply chain.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the Farm Progress Show.
Well, thank you for your interest.
You know, I talk to farmers all the time, and when I'm talking to them, you know, I usually have the problem I can't get them to stop talking. But here at the Farm Progress Show, every time I try to get a hold of a farmer and point a microphone in their face, I'm less popular than a teacher at exam time. So anyway, we had a great time here. Saw lots of neat stuff. But remember, work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. From the Farm Progress Show, I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.